Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Knockout Podcast, episode 47. We come back and we are here to greet you with yet another heavyweight main event. It's heavyweight mania. We were just talking about Ngannou Miocic, which is coming up as well in the future. So we're really on a run of heavyweights. But
Aren't we lucky?
yeah, aren't we lucky? But we have just a jokes main event from last week to talk about, which you put it out into the ether, and lo and behold, it happened.
Exactly as we said, which was beautiful.
We'll get on to Derek Lewis's the fact that he's perhaps the next contender for the heavyweight belt, which is, well, I don't know. That's heavyweight for you, and we've also got Rozenstruik-Gane, which actually for all the smack talking we do for the heavyweight division, which of course I would not say to any of these guys' faces. Rozenstruik-Gane actually offers perhaps somewhat of a technically compelling fight, but we'll touch on that more a bit later. We will start with the fights just gone by. We may as well start with that main event. Derek Lewis, Curtis Blaydes. A second round KO. It is literally what you said. That power does not go.
No.
And one shot is all it takes.
Yeah, it was essentially exactly, like what we said was that Blaydes is the better fighter in most aspects. And I think on the basis of the first round, that kind of proved it. Blaydes did a decent job of feinting and distracting Lewis to land shots. He also mixed it up well. He jabbed with him. He jabbed him well. He also really, like, the low kicks were really starting to add up. And I think that kind of if this fight went on longer on the feet, the low kicks really would have been one thing that kind of started to take their toll on Lewis, and is a reason why, honestly, if Blaydes just wanted to keep this on the feet, he might have actually won. Just because I think the low kicks would eventually have taken Lewis to a place where he just couldn't move, and Blaydes could have really battered him from there. But like, it's difficult to say that like it was a bad decision by Blaydes, because it was like the first takedown he really shot. It wasn't a great setup. It was from quite far away, but like that's the way he normally wins fights. So it's difficult to say that it's a bad decision from Blaydes. Because that's what he normally does, and it normally works out well. It's just that Derek Lewis, like, just has that ability to shut you off with one punch. Like, he just needs one chance. And like, as much as that's like, you would think that shouldn't be a consistently kind of like fight winning strategy at supposedly the highest level. It really is. So I like, you don't really know what to say. It's just very strange.
Yeah, I mean, if you're being hypercritical, you can perhaps say, as I said, the takedown wasn't necessarily telegraphed, but there wasn't anything really. I mean, I'd have to watch it back. I can't, but I think in my head there wasn't really anything sort of thrown. It wasn't a leg kick to distract him, or sort of a jab, or any sort of shot thrown. It was sort of quite a naked sort of, on its own attempt for the takedown. I think that's being, as you say, quite critical, because Blaydes was always going to resort to the takedown. I think staying out there for 25 minutes just on the feet with Lewis, whilst I think he was getting whilst he certainly was getting the better of him, I think 25 minutes out there on the feet would have been sort of not the percentage game. And as you say, if you can get him down, he's a big guy. He can control him well enough. So I said it wasn't a bad game plan. It's just what you're going to do when a guy, I mean, literally said in the press conference, the only shot I've been practicing is the uppercut. The first like one he throws as Blaydes goes in for his first takedown, and Blaydes is just out. I mean, there's really nothing more you can say. I think to be fair to Blaydes, and as you said, his striking was looking really good.
Yeah.
The way he was sort of, baiting out baiting out some of Lewis's shots, getting out of range, but then sort of coming back in with his own shots over the top or afterwards was good. I think he landed a lot of good jabs, some good sort of overhands, but yeah, there's really nothing you can do. I don't think, I don't think it was the wrong idea. It's just when you've got a guy like Lewis with just that much power, these things can happen.
Yeah. But yeah, like, no, going back to kind of like what you said, like, if he did just stay like on the feet for 25 minutes, like just had a striking match with Derek Lewis, like it's possible he could have won, like I said, like with the leg kicks, like building up and him maybe eventually getting a finish. But then like also what would happen if like he beats him up for 4 rounds and then just doesn't even shoot a single takedown and then gets knocked out in the 5th? It's like,
sort of like
Volkov.
Volkov style.
It's like, oh, Blaydes, what are you doing? Why weren't you shooting takedowns? But then, like, the first takedown he did, literally the first one, he got knocked out for it. So it's like, it is literally just, what do you do? It's like a catch-22 for Curtis Blaydes. But, like, I think obviously in hindsight, I think he probably should have just stuck to the striking. He was winning there, and I think it probably would have continued to build based on the look of it. It wasn't kind of the sort of fight where he was just landing on Lewis and kind of like just winning kind of a points match. He was doing actual damage to Lewis. He was hurting him, and he was doing good, like, attritive damage as well. So that would continue to build. So looking back, I think he definitely should have kept it standing, but like, it's hard advice to give to a man that's won almost all of the rest of his fights by taking his opponents down. Very strange. And it's really sad as well, because like Curtis Blaydes is a fairly rare heavyweight in that he consistently improves between fights. That's actually a fairly rare attribute at heavyweight.
And I don't think that I was just thinking she's on the sort of the next fight card. Sort of reminds me of Angela Hill, who we've seen in her last fights against Castaneda and Watterson. Tangible improvements. And I think we saw with Blaydes. I think that jab was better. That sort of range management, the striking has ever since that sort of JDS fight. We've really seen his striking just sort of begin to get better and better. And yeah. I think I'm sure he'll come into his next fight looking better as he did in this fight. But this is just the the probabilities that lie at fighting heavyweight, that these things just can't happen.
So like, it's just in that sense it is disappointing, because I really do like Curtis Blaydes for a heavyweight. He consistently improves. He has good ideas, but like, that gets punished sometimes, very unfortunately. And like, even worse is that like, he might improve going like forward into the future, but like, this was a scary knockout. Like, and considering the follow-up shots, like that could be career-altering damage that kind of he suffered, and he only really took 3 punches, and 2 after he was already knocked out.
I'm looking at the stats now. Blaydes round 1, 26 strikes of 44. Lewis 5 of 20. And then round 2, Blaydes 2 of 8. Lewis 2 of 3. 7 shots landed, and 2 of them were fatal. So it's just, I don't know. It's really sad. Like, that's just kind of the way it works out sometimes. But and it's been like a weird year for very violent knockouts already. Like, think back to like Sandhagen Edgar, and now this one. It's like, we're only in February, and they're 2 of the most violent knockouts you'll see. It's been a fairly scary year for knockouts. But no, it's very disappointing. I was very like, as happy as I was for like Poirier beating McGregor, I was maybe not equally as sad. I was more happy, I think, for Poirier McGregor, but it was kind of on that level of how disappointed I was to see Blaydes get knocked out, especially after how good he looked in the first round. Yeah, I mean, as you said, for Blaydes, I'm sure he'll take a while off. I think, to be honest, I'd like to see him fight the winner of maybe this fight we're seeing coming up next, Rozenstruik-Gane. For Lewis, the fight, I've not seen it mentioned, And it probably won't happen because of the exact thing that just happened here. I would love to see Derek Lewis welcome John Jones into the heavyweight division. I've no idea how it goes, and maybe it's awful and it's probably a John Jones shutout, but just the thought of Lewis just knocking 7 bells out of Jones with one shot is honestly something that I'm just clawing onto.
Yeah, like I think that would be. I think there are two scenarios that that goes. It either is just a John Jones shutout in which Lewis never gets into the fight, or it's a John Jones shutout for as long as the fight lasts, up until the last few seconds of the fight, and then Lewis violently, brutally destroys him. There is no scenario in which Lewis consistently can win that fight, but he can still win the fight. But yeah, that's like, it's just like how heavyweight is. We were saying this like kind of off air before, that heavyweight is one of the few divisions where you'll really like fights will very often be sorted out just on who is the better kind of athlete, and not on any further higher tactical or strategic level. It really does just come down to who faster, who stronger, a lot of the time. But yeah, weird fight. Derek Lewis is just a very weird fighter. You just wouldn't think that should work so consistently as it does, but it has, and he's built a fairly successful career off of it. So
yeah, and the final thing I'll say is, please, Jussi, do not give that man Alistair Overeem as he wants. Do not. That like we're not having him lose and then take on essentially the third best guy in the division, which sounds crazy when I'm saying it, or at least the third ranked. But please, like for Overeem's children and his wife, or if he's got any, please, for his lineage's sake, do not give Lewis that chance. But yeah.
Oh, and also kind of like in that regard as well, like Herb Dean has been, I think, sliding in terms of how good of a referee is recently, and he was so far away here. Like I think there were 2 unanswered shots maybe by Lewis, maybe there was only 1, I can't remember, but they were very violent, and Herb Dean should have been much closer to be able to stop that. And I can't remember which fight it was. Was he the referee of the Dorcas Olynyk fight?
Yeah, he was.
He might have been.
He was.
I also remember that being fairly bad as well.
Yeah, he definitely should have stepped in earlier.
So I just and I feel like we've talked a lot of like bad stoppages, like when we've been doing the podcast, and quite a few of them are attributable to Herb Dean.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But he's still very often kind of lauded as, like Joe Rogan always says, he's the gold standard for referees, and it's like I just don't know how that can be true anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think he needs to, I don't know, not do that anymore. But yeah, that's
I mean, if we work our way down the card, I mean, Kunitskaya, Caitlin Vieira, we didn't really have much enthusiasm going in, and that was just 29-28. Didn't really watch much of that. Nor with Derek Minner, Charles Rosas, just card filler, really. Dorcas Olynyk, I did catch, mainly because I knew it was only 2 minutes long. And yeah, this was just old man versus guy who was not an old man. The trademark Olynyk windmill no look overhands 3 seconds into the fight gave me a certain amount of joy. But then seeing him sort of shelled up against the cage, taking far too many shots only a minute and a half later, sort of took away any enjoyment I got out of that previous event. Yeah, good win for Chris Dorcas. I don't really know where he is in the division, because he's now he's now 10th in the rankings, and we've seen a first round knockout in his debut, which I didn't watch, 45 seconds, and then 155. It's like he's now in a position where he's managed to leapfrog quite a lot of people by getting Olynyk, and now he's in a position where he's probably going to be mixing it with a few of the. He might even get someone like an Overeem next. You don't even know.
Yeah, very possible. Yeah, bit weird. I don't know. It's strange that Olynyk is ranked that highly and beating him carries that much weight, but I suppose it does.
That's just the depth of the heavyweight division for you.
But yeah, whatever. I know still very little about Chris Daukaus. I've watched this fight yesterday. I can barely remember it. But no, we'll see what he does going forwards. Still,
another man who is shooting himself up the rankings is one of our own, Tom Aspinall. A good, solid win over Andre Arlovski. You know, we said to her last week, Arlovski's the guy that if you look good again, you know, beating him is not enough because, you know, he's a crafty guy and he'll sort of hang around. But beating him well, which I think Aspinall did, although the rear naked choke was very bizarre and that it wasn't exactly something he worked for. He just sort of snuck it in. I don't think Arlovski was expecting it. But yeah, a good performance from him. I mean, I noticed very quickly, very quick hands.
Yeah, that's that was what immediately stood out to me. His hands are very fast. Like for a heavy, like he looked like a middleweight, a fast middleweight at that, to be honest. Yeah, no, that was very impressive. But I think you can tell that he trains with Darren Till.
I was just about to say the same thing.
Very much the Darren Till school of defense.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up. Like within the first 20 seconds, I saw Arlovski sort of march forward, throwing a few shots, and I just saw Tom Aspinall like lean back in a straight line with his head up, and I was like, I literally paused it, and I was like, Google search, who does Tom Aspinall train with? Enter. Tom Aspinall trains with Darren Till. Like, there we go.
No, it is very much the pull back, fairly straight line, chin up in the air, shake your head as you get hit. That didn't hurt until it does. But no, it's, and I think I heard someone describe the way Tom Aspinall fights as like, we don't know if he's got a good chin, but he certainly does fight as if he's got a good chin. So we'll see if that's true when he faces maybe some higher people at heavyweight. I wouldn't trust him against a Lewis or an Ngannou. But yeah, I don't know. He's very keen is one thing I'd also say about Tom Aspinall. Very keen. And that can be a good thing, but also to a certain level. But yeah, no, he's interesting. I think he needs to take some lessons from like this win, and there is always a risk that like when fighters win, they don't try and learn from it. But there are certainly lessons that Aspinall can learn from this. He did gas himself out a little bit, I think, trying to finish Arlovski, and then kind of later in the fight, later in the first round, that kind of led to Arlovski being able to kind of push him backwards and land on him fairly consistently. So like essentially the rest of the first round after the first 2.5 minutes was fairly competitive. They were both landing on each other quite consistently. So yeah, there are certainly improvements to be made for Aspinall. But physically, he hits fairly hard. I don't think he's like a monstrous puncher like you'll find at a lot of heavyweights. But he is probably the fastest heavyweight in the division in terms of his hands, from what I can immediately think of off the top of my head. So he's got that going for him. So he'll be interesting going forward. Yeah, anything else?
No, I've not got anything much to add. I think you've basically said it all. Yeah, I think bigger obstacles to come, but I think you look at some of the guys that Arlovski has beaten and managed to sort of derail. It was a promising step forward, but yeah, I think that defense is something that needs addressing quickly, because there are guys that, as you say, are just gonna be able to just walk through that and land. But there's promise, definitely, and it's certainly something to, get another guy to add to the list of fun British guys fighting. We've got Nathaniel Wood at bantamweight. What's his name at featherweight? I can't remember what his name is now.
Oh, Arnold Allen.
Yeah, Arnold Allen. Who's the Mancunian guy who fought? Is
that Darren Till's other teammate?
No,
Mike Grundy. He's a featherweight.
No, I'll find his name. It's annoying because I was literally watching one of his fights the other day. No, I don't want him. He beat someone that Petr Yan fought. I can't remember his name. Give me 2 seconds. Lerone Murphy, there you go. Came to my head before I was looking up. He's a promising guy. But yeah, another one to add to contingent anyway. Elsewhere on this card, not really much to talk about. I was mentioning off air, Julian Erosa got a nice knockout against Nate Landwehr, which is always nice because Nate Landwehr is just an annoying person. Very weird, very annoying. So always good to see him get sort of TKO'd, perhaps early stoppage, and sort of see him getting up and complaining. Always good to see. And John Castaneda, which I think, if I'm correct, his nickname is there it is, John Sexy Mexi Castaneda. Beautiful with a good knockout against Eddie Wineland, looking impressive, but sort of asterisk, that is Eddie Wineland, who was a WEC champion, as the UFC commentary will not let you forget, albeit that was in 2006. And he's not got a good win since.
Yep.
But yeah, that was all from that. I mean, always fun to see Derek Lewis just defy conventional fighting logic once more, and some good and a good win for Aspinall from a British perspective. I guess we'll move on to what's coming up this week. There's actually a couple of fights on here that, at least a couple of fighters that I quite enjoy. There's another Magomedov, not Nurmagomedov, but Karamagomedov.
Oh yeah, I've actually, I think he's a late replacement, but I've heard he's actually pretty good. So I'll watch that one quite interested. I've never seen him fight. I've just heard like rumblings that people that follow the more like the Russian MMA scene are actually fairly interested in this guy. And Russia has a underrated MMA scene to a degree, although obviously with Khabib and the like, they're kind of being estimated fairly well these days. But the UFC doesn't. I think the UFC have a rule where they're only allowed to have a certain amount of Russian fighters.
Yeah, I think that is something.
Which has stopped them from signing quite a few prospects that they could have signed. Like there's a fight called Alexander Shabli. I think that's how you pronounce it. Who was a free agent recently, who's very good. But Bellator got him because I think just the UFC have a thing against Russian fighters. So yeah, I think they need to get rid of that rule very quickly because there's a lot of Russian talent that they're missing out on that I'd really like to see in the UFC. But there we go. But yeah, this guy meant to be decently exciting, so watch that one. And it's against Cowboy Oliveira, who is always fairly fun, no matter how much he cheats. But yeah, he's interesting.
Elsewhere, Moises Hernandez is actually, I think, quite a solid fight to headline the prelims. Moises, who's got a couple of victories over who did he fight? He fought Michael Johnson and Bobby Green. Hernandez, he sort of goes between getting absolutely battered to beating guys who are perhaps a lot worse than him. I mean, he got battered by Cerrone, battered by Judoba, and then, I mean, conversely battered Chris Grutzamaka, I think his name is. But that'll be a fun fight. I guess the first one on the main card is Angela Hill, Ashley Yoder, which I don't think I knew this fight was happening until quite recently. I wonder whether this is like being pulled forward, or I don't know why I didn't see it. But always good to see Angela Hill fighting again. And I didn't actually realize when I was looking up that she's 36 years old.
Angela Hill?
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, I didn't know that. Wow. So yeah, it is quite impressive, I suppose, that she continues to improve whilst being in what you'd imagine would be the late stages of her career then.
But yeah, we'll see what she can do against Ashley Yoder. I think that one's actually a rematch, but I think it should be a comfortable win for Angela Hill. Pedro Munoz, Jimmy Rivera, that's a fun fight that's been sort of bouncing around different cards for various COVID/injury reasons. Pedro Munoz coming off his tight decision loss to Frankie Edgar, and Jimmy Rivera coming off win against Cody Stamen, if I'm correct. Yeah, Cody Stamen. This is just a good, fun fight, really.
Yeah, this one will be a very fun fight, I think. This is probably my most interested fight on this card. So yeah, I think Rivera can do some of what Edgar did to Pedro Munoz, like really kind of like counter him as Munoz tries to come in. I think Rivera will have quite a lot of good success there, as Rivera did against Petr Yan, doing that quite a lot. If you watch the Yan Rivera fight back, which was one of my favorite fights from that year, from 2019, Rivera has a lot of success. And this is also a rematch. Did you say that? I can't remember.
Rivera Munoz.
Yeah. They have had a fight.
Angela Hill Yoda's a rematch. I'm not sure.
Rivera Munoz is a rematch as well. They had a fight in 2015, which was a split decision win for Jimmy Rivera. So I can see. So you always like have to think like how have they improved since. And Rivera, I still think is largely the same, although I think he's just overall improved, like kind of cleaned up the way he does things and kind of maybe focuses a bit better. Rivera kind of can get, I think, for the early stages of a fight, he's very switched on. I think that can fade as the fight goes on a little bit. As he gets tired, he kind of just switches off a little bit. So yeah, we'll see kind of how this matchup kind of plays out after this. But yeah, it's a very interesting fight.
Indeed. Yeah, I think that's definitely one to watch on the main card. Probably fight of the night contender, but we'll see. Nikita Krylov Ankalaev is the co-main. Ankalaev has finally escaped the clasp of Ion Cutelaba after, I think it was about 3 or 4. I think Cutelaba got COVID twice. Ankalaev got it once. I mean, it was all over the place. He finally got the decisive victory in their second fight in quite brutal manner. Then comes up against Krylov, who last beat Johnny Walker with a sort of unanimous decision. Actually, that was Lee Oliveira, so pretty much a year ago, which was quite sort of a grindy wrestling performance. Ankalaev is a guy that, I mean, bar the quite literal last second tap against Paul Craig, is it essentially unbeaten in the UFC. He is for me at least the guy to watch at light heavyweight. I mean, yeah, the power, the crispness of the shots. He's just good fun all round.
Yeah, no, he is. He does hit hard enough. He's well varied, kind of, in his attack. He's a southpaw. He fights mostly out southpaw, and he's got a good body kick, good head kick, and a good straight left. So that's like a triple attack. That's quite a common southpaw tactic, and he plays that well. All three of those quite well off each other. So yeah, he does that very well, and I think he's just very offensively, like quite offensively potent. And Krylov is a fairly defensively porous. So I kind of imagine this will be just a bit of a battering for Krylov. For Ankalaev winning. I just see him being able to consistently land and get to Krylov, and Krylov not being able to do much about it.
Yeah, I think this could be a really good opportunity for Ankalaev to stick a statement down in the light heavyweight division. I think Krylov's ranked 8. I wonder if Ankalaev is a bit low. Yeah, he's 11.
Ranked 11. Yeah.
So yeah, a good win gets himself at least up to 8. You'd think, and I think he is a couple of good performances away from really mixing up at the top of that division. We'll move then, I guess, Chip, to finish up to the main event, which you sort of alluded to. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, however you say it, versus Cyril Gane, or however you say that as well. In the main event, both with their last victories being KOs or TKOs of a very washed, as we've discussed many times, JDS. This is an interesting fight because you've got sort of Rozenstruik, who is certainly the sort of the more calm, lower output, traditional heavyweight, but still carries a hell of a lot of power and a hell of a lot of threat if he wants to be more active, versus Ciryl Gane, who is this guy that, very agile, moves around a lot, gives you a lot of different looks, a lot of different stances, and is the sort of like newer sort of hybrid version of a heavyweight fighter.
As you said, Rozenstruik is very much a sit back, really doesn't do much himself, and kind of does just wait for you so he can counter. But he will counter with a variety of weapons. So he will counter kick, and then obviously counter with overhands and left hooks as well. So he does have a variety of weapons in that regard, but still kind of like on a strategic level, it's very much, he's a very like set in his ways kind of fighter. He's got an idea of what he wants to do, and he's not really going to stray from that. And Gane, in some ways, is actually similar. We mentioned as we were watching, like the JDS Gane fight earlier, and in the JDS Rozenstruik fight, neither Rozenstruik or Gane come out fighting in a way that is best suited to beat JDS. They both kind of just fight their own fight, how they would against anyone else to start with. And then it's only after Rozenstruik gets hit with a big right hand from JDS does he like think, oh, I've got to really go after him, and start to pressure. And then 30 seconds later, he knocks him out. So as soon as he starts to do that, he found success with it. But Gane never really did that. He just hurts JDS with just a reasonably stiff jab. And because JDS is so fragile these days, he just wilted basically from a jab. And he never really had to change his strategy in order to really start to go after JDS until he was in the finishing sequence, essentially. So yeah, they're both interesting heavyweights, and they both have a fairly kind of decent idea of like who they are and what they want to do, but they don't necessarily adapt it particularly well for who they're fighting against.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I'd say for both of them.
Building on that as well, I think there was some stuff that came out yesterday in the press conferences. Ciryl Gane literally saying that he doesn't watch. I mean, again, we don't know whether any of this is true, but he seemed quite adamant that it was. That he just doesn't watch any of his opposition fighters sort of fights, and it's just his coaches who watch the tape, and they just sort of put bits together. So I think that idea that he is a sort of stick to my game plan and just sort of back that probably is true. I think perhaps if I'm looking at Rozenstruik's fight sort of career, especially in the UFC, there's only really one that you can get any sort of, that we have a sort of lengthy time from, and that is his Alistair Overeem one, which to an extent was, the full 25 minutes. In that fight, he was very slow, very, very inactive, which I think is his style. I think he is a guy, as you said, that is sort of like low output.
Yeah.
But even in that fight, when he was losing that quite clearly, I mean, he did win the fight with quite literally the last shot, but it was essentially the only shot that he landed. I wonder if I can get the stats up. I wonder whether Ciryl Gane could perhaps use that sort of, we have seen him resort to a sort of wrestling background before. I wonder whether he'd use that sort of idea to just sort of get a few early rounds on the judge's scorecard, and then sort of see where he goes from there. Let me have a look at the strikes. Actually, he did land quite a few strikes, especially, well, I guess mainly in round 4. But then again, now looking back, a lot of those were sort of ones where it was up against the clinch and sort of Overeem was just sort of safely covered
shelling up, yeah, which Overeem does a lot.
I wonder whether that sort of game plan, looking at how Overeem nearly bested Rozenstruik, is perhaps a better game plan for Gane. But as you said, perhaps it's something he might not take advice from and just sort of stick to his own stuff.
Yeah, I think Gane getting kind of like his wrestling going. I don't know how good or reliable Gane is as a wrestler against competent anti-wrestlers, but then again, is Rozenstruik a competent anti-wrestler? I don't think so. So like the people that Gane has had success grappling are fairly like people much earlier, like earlier in his, I mean, I was going to say much earlier in his career. It's not a very long career yet, so can't be much earlier, but lower ranked opposition, so to speak, which isn't Rozenstruik, but on a grappling level, Rozenstruik really isn't very good. So you could still say that Gane could have some success going. And I think that'll be interesting, especially late, because Gane is a very like footwork heavy, bouncy, in and out heavyweight.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how, like, I just don't imagine he could keep that up for 5 rounds. Maybe he can. That would be very impressive if he could. So I think especially late, he might have to lean on that a little bit, just so he's not exhausted, trying to bounce around with Rozenstruik kind of trying to hunt him down. So yeah, I don't know. I probably favour Gane, I think. But Rozenstruik is considerably more experienced, and it is a 5-round fight. So
yeah. I just wonder. I even with Gane's, that bouncy style. I mean, I look back to that Tanabosa fight, and even to an extent that JDS, it is bouncy and it is higher output than someone like a Rozenstruik, and certainly higher in terms of energy expenditure. But he's not exactly lasering you with shots every second. He's not.
Yeah.
It is, a lot of it is just sort of moving in and out of range, getting feints, just giving different looks, seeing what he can get off. So I think I will go with Cyril Gane as well, because I think his stamina will hold up. My only thing is, and I think Rozenstruik perhaps deserves more respect than me to just say he could do a Lewis. But we've seen with Rozenstruik that his power carries.
Yeah.
Right until the 25th minute. And I wonder whether Gane will be able to will have the experience to stay sharp and stay sort of composed when I presume he inevitably gets properly hit, because in most of his fights up until now, he's never really been challenged, especially in the UFC. I can't speak for some of his earlier fights, but given none of them got out of the first round, probably not.
No. Yeah, I think
this generally could be the first time he's properly challenged, when you have to assume Rozenstruik does crack him at some point. So perhaps there's an opening there, and Rozenstruik sort of prey on that sort of vulnerability and that sort of inexperience. But
yeah,
maybe I'll lean to. I think I think I'll just go for Rozenstruik, actually. Just.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that is a good point. Gane hasn't really faced many challenges in his career. I think he maybe got cracked by JDS a couple of times, but not solidly, not really. So yeah, we don't really know how he reacts if things aren't really going his way. He might be like a very kind of big front runner where he needs to build out a lead. It's just that he's only had 7 fights, so we literally just don't know that much about Gane, especially when he's pushed, because he's been a considerably better athlete than pretty much everyone he's fought up until this point, or he's been considerably bigger than them. Like he fought Tanabosa, and Tanabosa is not a big heavyweight, and Gane is quite large. So he's had a decent athletic advantage over everyone he's fought, which he won't necessarily have against Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik hits hard, and when he does explode, he is very quick. So yeah, that'll be interesting. So I can understand a Rozenstruik pick, just from kind of experience. We know.
I mean, I just looked at the odds now, and it's like Cyril Gane's anywhere from -250 to -300 odds on favourite, which is I mean probably would be the favourite, but I mean some of that seems wide for a guy making his sort of first main event appearance, first 5-round fight, and only a sort of eighth MMA fight ever.
Yeah. So no, it'll be interesting. It's a solid heavyweight fight, and we'll get and I think that we'll definitely come out of this, unless it's a very quick knockout, but I don't think Gane will finish him quickly. I think we'll definitely learn something about Cyril Gane in this fight.
I think so.
We'll learn how kind of he reacts when he's probably not having it all his way. So yeah, I think that just from that level, I'm excited about this fight.
Yeah, no, it should be a good one. Well, that's most of the action on the Gane Rozenstruik card. There's obviously other fights, but we've sort of picked out most of the ones that interest us. Unless you've got anything else you want to add, Jack?
No, that's all I can think of so far.
Yeah, well, that should be everything for today. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back same time next week to talk all the fallout from the Rozenstruik-Gane card, and we look forward to a stacked UFC 259. 3 title fights: Makhachev, Dober, Rakic, Santos, Cruz, Kenny. You've got Song Yadong, Benavidez, Kai Kara France. I mean, it is a really stacked card. So there is plenty to preview and plenty to talk about. So we'll be back next Thursday to talk about all of that. But until then, stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you then.
See ya.